Good morning. Picked up a article or a study on the effects of problems in the upper cervical spine and how that can affect equilibrium and cause things like dizziness. Now, if someone's watching this who isn't a patient of mine, briefly, I do a technique called orthospinology, which is focusing on upper cervical, upper neck, and its alignment. And if you nose around the internet enough about upper cervical care, you'll come across folks that have gotten a lot of help with problems related to dizziness or vertigo, and all stripes of syndromes that may include vertigo. So for decades and decades, chiropractors have helped folks with that area and with those sorts of symptoms. So this is pretty quick read. The thing I like about it is it goes back to 1983, which shows how long, even in the literature, folks have been talking about that upper cervical, upper neck causing issues with dizziness or vertigo, or as they use, disequilibrium. It's a mouthful. So it's titled Disequilibrium Caused by a Functional Disturbance in the Upper Cervical Spine. This goes back to 1983. Like I said, Manual Medicine is the journal. So some points it makes, and that right out of the gates, disequilibrium may be caused by the destruction of peripheral vestibular apparatus, vestibular nerve, and vestibular nuclei. Well, that's a fancy way of saying that the centers of your central nervous system, the areas that control vertigo, balance, and awareness of where you are in space, well, dizziness could be caused by problems with those. That's pretty obvious. But then it also notes that it can be caused by a functional disturbance of the upper cervical spine. That's where it gets interesting for us and for chiropractors. It says, in primates, equilibrium requires both an intact vestibular apparatus, as in the central nervous system hardware, if you will, of the vestibular nerve and vestibular nuclei, and the upper cervical spine somatosensory integration. So, fancy way of saying upper cervical spine needs to be mechanically, structurally, functionally working well to have the integration, to have the important sensory function intact for avoiding dizziness and helping us know where we are in space. And the importance of the proprioceptors, which is the part of your nervous system that allows you to know where you are in space, is important. These proprioceptors up here are critical because they've done studies where they'll give injections, numb up those joints, and people just cannot tell where they are. They start swimming, they completely lose the ability to keep their balance. And so the proprioceptors that accomplish that are C1, C2, and C3. So some relevant points. They say 1/3 of functional disturbances of the upper cervical spine of all patients can be attributed to trauma. 1/3. So kind of the public is aware that chiropractors help folks with whiplash or injuries to the neck or cricks or spasms. But this is saying that they observed that these functional disturbances at the upper cervical, almost 1/3 are from a physical trauma. So, but importantly, they say cranial trauma is a source of hurting that upper cervical area. So if you slip on the ice, fall back, crack your head, or something hits your head, or you pick the problem, that's something that's going to really be an issue for the upper cervical spine. And they say that, so if somebody's had a concussion, for example, we think of that as brain injury, which it is. But if people continue to have issues with balance or dizziness, or just kind of a uneasiness about, hey, I'm getting ready to lose my balance, look to the upper cervical spine, they say. It's probably not just brain function. It's probably not just from that impact to the skull. And so I said this would be quick. Here we go. They end with this comment: the therapy of choice for the functional disturbance of the upper cervical spine is manual therapy. So hands-on chiropractic care or instruments. They didn't mention instruments, but I'm here to tell you that the hands or particular special instruments can do the job. It's physical. It's not pharmaceutical. It's not surgical. So, once again, the point to drive home is for folks who have issues with vertigo of many different stripes, regardless of, or often regardless of what the diagnosis is, you're going to find that upper cervical spine is a major player, and it's worth getting checked out, particularly if you're finding, traditional medical methods aren't working well for you. All right, have a good day, and until next time.